Hola, Gringos and Gringos. I'm Mark,
I'm Gina.
and we are Gringos Are Us. Expats with a plan.
I'm going to let Mark drive it this week because he's done a lot of research to share with you today on some of the preparation you need for your Mexican Consulate appointment.
We have decided that we're going to be going sometime October or November to the consulate down in Atlanta to do our interview. And a lot of that's going to depend upon how and when we are able to get an appointment. That has become a little bit problematic lately because they've been getting a lot of requests to get in and get their interviews for both temporary and permanent residency. So in the 6 months that we have prior to that, there are a lot of things that need to be put together prior to the arrival in the consulate in Atlanta. And we're going to go through some of those things. Some of them take time. Some of them don't take very much time at all. But it's a whole lot easier to get them done early than it is waiting until the last minute.
Oh, yeah.
First on that list is going to be create a list or a spreadsheet of everything that you need, because it is it's not a lot of items, but it's going to be a whole lot easier just to check them off to make sure that you've got everything. And if you routinely check it, you're going to go, ooh, I need to do this. And you may find that it's something that you have to, like in our case, we got married in Vegas. So if we had to get a marriage certificate, and we'll go into that a little bit here later, we would have to send away and get that.
Yep.
Well, now we're at the mercy of a government. And we all know how quickly they all work. Some can be quick, some can be slow.
Just take the stress off yourself and just be prepared. Plan ahead.
Yep. Yeah. First thing on the list is make sure that all of your financial statements have your names listed on there in the same exact manner that they are listed on your passport. That is one of the sticking items with the consulate. They want to make sure that you are, and the money that you're presenting is actually yours. So if the names that are on the statements don't match exactly, you could run into a problem. This was a situation that we had because who really worries about whether your name is this on your passport and this on your bank statement? I want my money and I want to travel. Well, okay, that works out well till you go to the consulate. So to do that, what we ended up doing is we just had to call our bank, set an appointment, go down, and we were there. And it took us about 20 minutes to do.
Yep.
And most of the time, it actually was nothing more than walking in with our driver's license and our passport to make sure that they matched the passport exactly on the financials. And the person who helped us was great. And we spent about 20 minutes total doing it. Most of it was spent about moving to Mexico while he typed in all the data.
Right.
And
just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, my name, I think I had no middle name on my financials on these statements.
And I had just middle initial.
But on your passport, it's your full name, first, middle, and last.
Correct.
Yeah.
And now I got to let the dog out.
And welcome back. The dog has been let out.
I sympathize with the dog well. He's 15 years old. I know about this. I got to go, and I got to go now. But, so talking about making sure that everything matched there with the bank, another part of it is make sure you sign it the way it is on your passport. We only had to sign it twice because somebody, we won't mention any names here, forgot that we were changing it so it matched the passport, and I signed it the same way I always do, which was just the middle initial, but that did not match what was on the paperwork.
Right.
So just be cognizant of that. The next thing is really a little bit about the financial numbers. I'm sure that everybody has gone through this to make sure. How much do I need to qualify for permanent? How much do I need to qualify for temporary? To go over those, if you're going to go for permanent, we'll start with that one. If you're going for permanent, right now, the Mexican government is requiring $175,000 in retirement funds.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be in one place. It can be a combination of a money market account, a 401k, a retirement fund. You put all those accounts together, and if it totals more than $175,000, and you can show that that money has been in there for a period of 6 to 12 months, depending upon the consulate, then that would qualify. If you choose to go off the earnings
For permanent.
one of the two people in a couple, or if you're going as a single, it is $4,350 a month. If you're a couple, then the spouse does not have to equal that amount. They're only required to show anywhere from $800 to $1,000, part of it depending upon the consulate that you go to, and part of it depending upon what the exchange rate is at the time we do this. So you have to have all the financials, all the statements that show that you have that much money in your bank every month. If you were going for a temporary, the numbers changed and dropped down. For your savings, you're only required to have $43,220.
That's all.
That's all. Yeah, drop in the bucket. But if you're going for it on the income, on the earned amount that you're getting every month, that number drops down to $2,600 a month for an individual. For the spouse, it's still the same, $800 to $1,000 a month. And again, that is based upon what the current exchange rate is and the consulate that you go to.
And I think it's important to note that that little bit of information often gets lost, and people often get confused, and they think they have to have twice. For a couple, they think they have to have twice of those minimum incomes, and they don't.
Correct.
The primary person needs to have that minimum income. The additional dependents only need to have that extra $800 to $1,000 on top of that to qualify.
Yeah. And now the dog has to come back in.
Come on, little old man.
It takes longer to get him back in because he forgets why he's standing at the door. He remembers when he needs to go. When he's coming back in, he forgets that.
True statement.
Absolutely. I understand that totally. So, with that being said, and talking about the numbers and the amount of the finances that are required, one of the things that we also wanted to touch base on is that Mexican immigration has been rapidly changing. They have put an emphasis on trying to restrict the number of 180-day tourist visas that people have been using and then making a run for the border and then coming back into Mexico. With that being said, what's going on is that they want people to do it the correct way. If you want to go down and take a vacation, the Mexican government wants you to do that. They encourage you to do that. But if you want to come in and move into Mexico, they're really wanting you to do it through the residency visa system. If in the future you are thinking of doing like we are and moving to Mexico to retire, one of the things you need to take into consideration is that the amounts that we just got done discussing are tied to the minimum wage in Mexico. In the last 5 years, they have doubled. They go up about 20% every year. And trust me, the people that work in Mexico need that. So there's nothing wrong with that. That is a very good thing for the people who are residing down there. But the impact is that number is what they base these numbers on. Next year in 2023, it is anticipated that it will go up another 20% or so.
Right.
So if it goes up another 20%, you can extrapolate those numbers out and go, ooh, this is starting to get a little steep. So if you are thinking of doing it, we encourage you to go ahead and do the visit this year. You can make the appointment, go get your paperwork together, go in, and you can get your visa, be it temporary or be it permanent. Whichever way you decide to go, whether it's permanent or temporary, after you visit the consulate, you're going to be required to enter into Mexico within 180 days of that visit. So you have to go down, you have to visit one of the cities that have an INM office, and they are at least one in every state. So when you make your visit, you plan on being there for about 30 days is what we're planning on doing. They say it can take anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks. We figure if we're going to go to Mexico, might as well go for a month and make it worth the trip. But when you enter the country, you have 30 days from the time that you are stamped in to go ahead and then visit the INM office to take your stamped visa and trade it in for the plastic residency card.
Canje.
Correct. And if you're thinking about doing this in the future, if you're going for permanent, once you get the permanent status, you go home. Whenever you decide to come back, you come back, be it 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whenever. But you're going to be able to take advantage of these lower numbers now instead of having to deal with the higher numbers in the future. If you're on a temporary and decide that's the route that you either A, qualify for, or B, is best for you because you want to take a car in, then you would just have to, make a trip to Mexico once a year to go and do your renewal.
But that's so hard.
I know. Having to go to Mexico once a year, we feel sad for you. But in an effort to totally take advantage of the lower numbers, it's a good thing to consider doing that in 2022 instead of waiting to 2023 when the numbers do go up. One of the things we recommend is on your financial statements, highlight the balances so that you're not having the consulate person have to look through all the financials, highlight it. That way they can just go boom, boom, boom. And depending upon the consulate, you're going to get either a 6 or 12 month statement requirement. Check with the consulate that you're going to and that you're wanting to use and see what their requirements are. We are going to be going to Atlanta, and as of today, they're requiring a 12-month backlog or history, that's a better word, history of the statements. So being us and the way we prepare things, we're going to walk in with 18 months worth of statements.
All the statements.
Here you go.
Yeah.
You've got them all.
Right that. Just like that.
Yeah. And we are firm believers we would have more information than not enough.
Right.
Especially with the difficulties that are starting to go through with all of what's going on and getting into the consulates right now. Okay, another thing to take into consideration is your driver's license. Knowing that each state is going to be unique and has their own set of requirements, we can only speak as to what is going on here in North Carolina. Here in North Carolina, you can only renew your driver's license 6 months prior to the expiration date. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to make sure that we got that taken care of. Now, in North Carolina right now, and I'm sure there's a lot of other states that are implementing this, the country is going to the Real ID system. And what Real ID requires is that you have to make a trip to DMV. Ugh. None of us want to go there if we can avoid it. But if you get the Real ID and get certified with that, it does allow you to go into federal facilities, be it courthouses, jails, but that would allow you access to enter all these federal facilities. You don't necessarily have to have Real ID because if you have a valid passport and a passport card, you can use these forms of identification,
Either or.
for entry into federal facilities and also to get through TSA. If you want to take a flight and it's a domestic flight, in the future, I'm not sure exactly when this is going to be going into effect, when TSA is going to require this, but they are going to be requiring that you have the real ID, and if you don't, you're going to have the passport or the passport card to board a flight, even domestically, if you don't have real ID.
If that happens.
Correct. If it happens.
If it happens.
Next.
Well, but also with the ID, we found out that in North Carolina, we can go in and both of us do real ID right now because they allow that. Of course, it doesn't extend the life of our license. We just pay an extra fee to do real ID.
Correct.
Now, the benefit to that is North Carolina allows you to do renewals online. And our timeline is such that if we wait to do our renewal and get real ID at that time, I'm going to have to come back here in 2025 and do that. So I may go with him when he renews and just get my real ID at that time. And then I can renew my license for North Carolina online in the future.
Yeah, because mine actually works out fairly well that I can renew the 6 months in advance would be next August. So, and we're looking at doing the final move sometime next summer. So if we do it towards the end of August, then I can get my renewal and my real ID and only have to do it one time. Right. So one less trip to DMV or one less time dealing with any state entity is always a good thing. And speaking of renewals, one of the other things that we are doing, we are going to be renewing our passports. And let me explain two things about this. Number one, renewing your passport can be done at any time. You can do it any period from 1 year up to right before it expires. And one of the things that we're wanting to do is we want them synchronized. So we want to be able to send both of our renewals in one envelope. That way, when 10 years from now, when it's time to renew, well, hopefully by then we don't have Alzheimer's, but if one of us does, the other will still remember, oh, I'm sending my passport in, I got to send the other ones in as well. Right. Yeah, I know you're looking at me because it's probably going to be me, not you. But anyway, we want that to be able to go so we only have to remember one date instead of constantly going, okay, who's got to do this? When you go to the consulate, you need to have a year's worth of time as far as valid time left on your passport. The reason being...
Well, this isn't a requirement. This is a recommendation.
Part one is a requirement. Part two is a recommendation. Part one is that you have to enter Mexico within 180 days of your visit to the consulate to finalize your paperwork. The second part, the recommendation is they recommend that you have at least 6 months worth of valid time left on your passport when you enter the country. Well, in doing that, what we want to do is we want to make sure that you have the time necessary so that you're not held up at the border and have any problems when you go to immigration to get in so that you can go and get your paperwork. The next thing that
Oh, and you can send all of that in to be renewed in the same envelope.
Yes, and you need to send both your passport and your passport card.
If you have one.
If you have one, because you will not get a replacement unless you send the original, the current one. And that applies to both the passport card and also the passport itself. So if you are a user of a passport card, then you need to make sure that you include that when you send it in. Now, the U.S. State Department has really made it pretty good about how to go and get your passport renewed. You just go to the U.S. State Department's website. They have all the information listed of what you need regarding both filling out the form online, getting your passport photo, where to staple your passport photo on the filled out form, and what fees you need to put in there. And remember, you can do it for both. And so what we would do is Gina would fill out one, I would fill out one, we get our pictures done, include our passports and our passport cards, and send it into the U.S. government with the appropriate funds, of course, because God knows they don't do anything for free. So then they would send us the new passports and we'll be good to go. Because she will not have the 1 year when we go to Atlanta. She will be down to just about 6 months, I think, is about the time she has left on it. So we would need to make sure she gets hers done, and just might as well go ahead and do mine at the same time.
All right. Birth certificates.
Oh.
Okay. What I am reading is that birth certificate's not going to be required for the consulate for the adults. It will be for children. And that birth certificate needs to have the parents' names on the certificate. And that was a problem for me because my birth certificate, for whatever reason, doesn't have my parents' names on it. So I recently just sent for one. But I just wanted to have it just in case.
Is that why you do all the DNA testing?
You know.
Okay.
You know, I have to know who my people are.
Ah.
So I went ahead and just recently ordered my birth certificate and made sure that my mom and dad's names are on it. The consulate probably is not going to request that from us, but it's a good idea that we have it. But they would want it for children.
Yes.
Now, speaking of birth certificates for children or other dependents and your marriage license.
No, the marriage certificate, not the license.
Marriage certificate.
Yes.
All these things are either they've either been stamped by local entities like counties or state, and those are not recognized by Mexican government. So recently, QRoo Paul and 2 Expats Mexico talked about what does it mean to have something apostilled. And I'm probably not saying it right.
No, you are.
I am. Good.
Yes.
So this is an international certification that governments trust between nations. So while Mexico may not recognize your state or county stamp on your document, having it apostilled by the issuing state is just an acceptable form of certifying that the document is authentic.
Yeah, it's basically it's an international stamp of approval.
Yes.
Because that's basically what they do is they put a stamp on there, and apparently the overwhelming majority of the countries in the world are all part of this same program. Mm-hmm. And this way they're not worrying about, well, is this truly or is this a made up document? If it has the apostille stamp on it, they gives it the thumbs up to accept.
Now, I don't really necessarily, I'm gonna retract a little and say I'm not going to necessarily say that the consulate requires that, but it is a good thing to have. And I'm going to put a link to QRoo Paul's video and give him credit for this because he brought this to light for me and made me realize that I'm going to have to mail off. We need to have our marriage certificate apostille. So you can visit your state issuing organizations. And in this case, since we got married in Vegas.
Oh, we get to go to Nevada again?
No.
Oh.
We're not going back to Vegas. I'm going to have to mail the original along with a printout that I've completed and a nominal fee. I think it's $20, so that they will present and they would create and return to us an apostilled statement saying that, this is authentic and it was issued by this governing agency. And so we send the originals and they return the original with the apostille back to us. Why is this significant? Well, the reason that I got excited about this after hearing QRoo Paul talk about it is because the example given was a spouse passed away and the surviving spouse wanted to claim the body, and Mexico said, no, you have to prove that you're married.
And one of the things that's one of the reasons that we're doing both birth certificates and the marriage certificate. as far as getting them apostille, is we don't know what's coming down the road 15, 20, 25 years from now. But having the documents that the Mexican government will accept may, in some point in time, save us a whole lot of grief when we might be at a time where we don't even want to have to think about this.
Right.
And so if we can pave the way so it's going to be a little bit easier for us to deal with this in that time, then let's go ahead and get it done now, which is one of the reasons that we are starting to do all of this so far in advance. And the little old man's got to go out again.
Passport photos.
Yes.
Not really passport photos.
Well, visa photos
Yes.
is probably a better way of saying it. When you do go to the consulate, one of the requirements is going to be that you do have a current photo. And this is very similar to the U.S. passport photo, except the size is going to be different. In the U.S., we get a standard 2x2. In Mexico, it is 35 millimeters by 45 millimeters. If you go to places that offer passport services, most of them are very aware of the standard sizes for most countries. And I can tell you from being in the photo industry for 35 years, 35 millimeters by 45 millimeters is a very common size. There's a lot of countries, most of Europe operates on that same exact size photo. But I do recommend printing out the exact specifications regarding the size, the minimum and maximum head height positions, and take that with you to whoever you're going to have provide this service for you. That way, just in case there's any questions, you have it right there to go, okay, this is exactly what we need. So doing that, it's quick, it's simple, but again, it's something that's going to take a trip and requires time. So doing all of these to give yourselves a little bit more time so you're not doing this the week before we go and getting stressed. Do it early.
Yeah, so to summarize, this video is really about getting your paperwork ready now so that you eliminate the stress and the rush at the end before your consulate appointment. So get your financials in line, make sure your name is correct on them, get your passports renewed if you can, get your driver's license renewed if you can, have your birth certificates and make sure that your names are on them just in case. If you have a marriage certificate, make sure you get an apostille.
Yep.
Get your photos done.
Get your photos done. And also, one of the things you have to do is check with the website for the consulate that you are going to, because there are lots of different variations as to the requirements from this consulate to a different consulate. So you want to make sure that what you have at least meets, if not exceeds, what the requirements are going to be for that particular consulate. And in doing so, you want to just get it all together and basically do it as stress-free as possible. Because that's the whole reason we're doing this, is to free ourselves of stress. So let's not add to it by waiting until the last minute. Let's get all this done as far in advance as we can, and so that we can just put it all into a nice vanilla folder, walk right in and go, here you go. We've got everything that you need.
So some of the videos that are coming very soon are going to be a list of websites that we data mine for a lot of the information that helps us in our research. I will also gather a list of YouTubers that we both have been watching that have been incredibly helpful. There are online resources, relocation guide with Mariana. There's Sonia Diaz. There's a bunch of information, and I'd like to share that and give you guys an idea of where we're looking. I definitely want to share some of our favorite YouTubers, and that'll be coming down the road as well.
Got to give them a thumbs up.
Sure.
This all started, as we said at the very beginning, from watching a lot of them and they were the impetus for us going on and doing what we're doing. Fortunately, being married to somebody who's in IT, there are lots of benefits. And one of them is she has put together this massive, and I do mean massive, spreadsheet.
It's not done yet.
And it's not done yet. And we're constantly mining data.
Yes.
But we will go through that particular spreadsheet, how we gathered the information, how we arrived at the information that we thought was needed for us and everything else. So that's what we'll be doing in our next video. So, but if you like this one, make sure you go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel so you can see the other ones coming, and absolutely ring that bell. That way you'll get notified when the next videos are going.
Right, and the algorithms help us immensely because they help the channel grow and reach a wider audience. So we really appreciate the help in a like and a subscribe.
Absolutely.
All right, well.
If you've got any comments as to what we may have missed, what we may have needed to add, what things you would like to see us address coming forward,
Yes.
please feel free to drop us a note right down below in the comment section, and we'll be glad to take a look and comment back to see if we can get this just being a little bit better to help all of y'all realize your dreams of moving to Mexico. Because with Gringos or Us, expats with a plan, if we can do it, you can too.
Hasta la próxima.
Adios.